Linda is the president and principal at Intermarketing Group in Amherst, New Hampshire. Intermarketing Group is a full-service marketing, event planning, and art licensing agency developing and executing strategic marketing programs for clients. So Linda today is going to talk to us about how to make money, how to commercialize, and the work she's done with commercializing a lot of the different types of creative works that we've talked about today.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Yes, as you said, I'm Linda Gerson, and I'm very happy to join you and talk about commercializing creative works and licensing, and give you some background on the licensing industry and how creative people can take advantage of the many opportunities. A picture's worth 1,000 words, so I brought some licensed products, just a few of the many projects that I do. This particular artist here, Tracy Flickinger, is a graduate of UNH. So I thought it was particularly appropriate. She lives here in New Hampshire, and her work is nationally known. She does characters called Dinner is Served, and they are on dinnerware and stationery and calendars and puzzles and wallpaper borders and party goods and all kinds of products, and have been very, very successful. She also does all different kinds of designs, not just the chefs, but she's a very talented artist. I brought a photographer's work, David Stern, Fine Art Photography. I've licensed his work, his photographs for calendars and puzzles and greeting cards. So there's quite a lot, depending on the creative work that you have, that you can license it on. So today I'm here to present you an overview and basic understanding of how to commercialize your creative works in the field of merchandise licensing. As you can see, my expertise is in art licensing, and I represent artists and illustrators and photographers. And it offers a great opportunity to make a substantial income by getting into the licensing business. Firstly, I'd like to thank both Maria and Tim for inviting me here today. I greatly appreciate it. So my game plan is to provide you with an overview of the basics and the history of the industry, and then I'll discuss how you can plan and avail yourselves of the opportunities in the business of merchandise licensing. I'm sure the first question on everybody's mind is a basic one. What is licensing, and more specific, what is art licensing? So for some fun today, I brought some cartoons that will kind of illustrate what I'm about to talk about. This is two cavemen, and one has drawn a picture on the cave wall, and the other caveman said, "This painting itself won't bring much. The real money will be in licensing." The second one I have is, you all know Disney as a major licensor. This cartoon says, "Disney's Desperate Housewives," and this is Beauty and the Beast. She says, "My husband is an animal." This is Cinderella. "Mine still drives a pumpkin." Snow White, "My husband leaves me home with 7 little ones," etc. So these are all licensed characters. And then one that's sort of morbid but funny to licensing agents is the passing of a licensing agent. So they're having a licensing agent's funeral, and it says, "And to help ease the pain of our loss, a complimentary T-shirt will be given to each of you on the way out." So, if any of you own a Red Sox baseball cap or a sports team jersey, or your child has a sleeping bag or clothing with Mickey Mouse, Barbie, or SpongeBob, or you've purchased items from Macy's with Martha Stewart's name on it, or you've gotten a Happy Meal at McDonald's with a toy in it, or you've purchased Sunkist soda, you've purchased licensed merchandise. So I'm quite confident that all of you have purchased many, many licensed products over your lifetime without realizing it, because licensing is ubiquitous. It covers a huge array of merchandise, and there's scarcely a category of products that hasn't been touched by the licensing industry. That's part of the game of the licensing agents, is how many categories can we license product into. We're even seeing credit cards with designs and art on it, and you see all kinds of computer accessories now as well. According to industry figures, the global sales of licensed merchandise totaled over $5.6 billion in 2013, which is the most recent numbers that I have. These are wholesale dollars, so about 3 times that is retail. So given the basics, let's get to the basics and some key components of licensing. I know we've talked about it, and Kim talked about it a little bit, but I'll repeat. in a different way, hopefully. First, we'll define what merchandise licensing is. It's defined as the practice of allowing a manufacturer, called the licensee, to use, affix, or associate intellectual properties such as artwork, character, design, or other representation owned by the creator or licensor on products in exchange for a fee or a royalty fee. So Snoopy, Mickey Mouse, Star Wars are licensed on a huge array of products, from greeting cards to clothing to toys to bedding, food, and more. NASCAR, the NFL, or specific well-known athletes are licensed on merchandise for the consuming public to purchase. Ralph Lauren, Tommy Hilfiger, Martha Stewart lends their name to household furnishings, apparel, home decor products, and more. They license their names to be placed on products. And you, as a property owner, can license the rights to your creative works on a host of products as well. So I wanted to define who the players are in the licensing business. The licensee is actually the manufacturer who acquires licensing rights from the owner to use a property. The licensor is the owner of the idea, the character, the design, or creative works to be licensed. The licensed property is the actual creative works, the idea, the design, the character, the individual, or other representation to be licensed. Licensed properties come in many flavors and categories, such as sports. All of us know NASCAR, the NBA, etc. Entertainment licensing and character licensing are the largest parts of the licensing business. Star Wars, Frozen, SpongeBob, Sesame Street, entertainment. As character, Barbie, Snoopy, Peter Rabbit. Brand and trademark licensing, when you go to the grocery store and you see Coca-Cola, Haagen-Dazs has licensed its name for liqueur. Automobiles like Mustangs. American Airlines licenses its name for travel products for suitcases and whatnot. And designer licensing, Ralph Lauren, Calvin Klein, Tommy Hilfiger, and more for clothing. So when you go into a department store and you see Ralph Lauren's name on everything, he's not producing all those products. He's licensing his name to produce many of those products. And my specialty is art licensing, the licensing of individual creative people, artists, illustrators, and photographers. Everyone will recognize famous art licensing programs such as Norman Rockwell, Monet, Picasso, or even Mary Engelbreit as examples of art licensing individual artists. The royalty is the fee paid by the licensee to the licensor for the use of the property on the licensee's products. It's generally a percentage of the wholesale price of the products sold, and it ranges from 1% to 15%. 15% is really, really high. I used to work for a major greeting card publisher, and at the time, E.T., the movie, came out, and it was the biggest hit. And we got a call and said, would you like to license E.T. for, I worked for a company that published greeting cards and calendars and party goods. And we were really interested, and they said 15% royalty. Well, everybody we were paying was like 5%. And we had Sesame Street, and that was a little higher, and so we said, no, thank you. And in movie licensing, movies can go up really fast, but then they can crash, and if you don't ride the wave of it, you can get stuck with a lot of inventory and really get burned. So we passed on E.T. Lastly, the other person in the mix is the licensing agent or licensing agency, and that's a sole proprietor or corporation or partnership who represents the licensor and brings the licensor together with licensees for the purpose of manufacturing and selling products using the licensed property. The agent represents the licensor and is paid by the licensor to seek out contracts with licensees and to manage the total business and marketing program of licensing that the agent will create for its clients. So the history of licensing, merchandise licensing, is very long and interesting. Beginning in 1904, when the Brown Shoe Company licensed their characters from the popular Buster Brown comic strip for the promotion of their shoes, licensing was born. That beginning followed with the teddy bear hitting the market with the permission of Teddy Roosevelt. Licensing continued to grow by leaps and bounds, with characters and properties like Mickey Mouse, Shirley Temple, Roy Rogers, Lone Ranger, the Warner Brothers classic cartoon characters, Bugs Bunny, Daffy Duck, etc. By the 70s and 80s, the licensing field was exploding. I sort of came into my career at the beginning, and there's a licensing trade show that happens every year. I was there at the very beginning and doing art licensing, which was not a category that was well known or thought much of, and the character licensing was huge. And so everybody just jumped into licensing, and it exploded. So now I hope we have a basic understanding of the definitions in licensing and the key players. So I wanted to go next into the world of merchandise licensing. But before I go further, can I clarify any of these definitions, or are there any questions? Okay. Now I'm going to discuss the basics and the art of licensing 101. The art licensing field has grown tremendously and has become a widely accepted and established competitive segment in the field of merchandise licensing. According to industry statistics, art licensing commands a healthy 2.5% of wholesale sales of licensed products. As I said, character licensing and entertainment licensing are the biggest chunk that are worth multi-billion dollars. And we know there's a new Star Wars movie coming out next December, and that will be loaded up with merchandising. Both manufacturers and retailers recognize the value in art licensing as a way of creating exclusive looks in product design. So in a highly competitive, difficult economy right now, art licensing creates a point of difference and benefits the manufacturer, the licensee, the manufacturer licensee, the retailer, and the final consumer. So when you walk into a store, you have a choice of different kinds of products with different kinds of artwork on them. It helps a retailer differentiate its offering from its competitor, so that if you go into Walmart and Target, you're not going to always see the same merchandise and the same designs. If they've picked up different art licensors to put on their products. So how can an individual tap into this world and be successful? It's a business like any other, and the product in this business just happens to be your creative works. So to be successful, just like in any other business, it's really important to create and execute a strategic licensing business plan and marketing program. To begin with, you need to assess the market for your creative property and look at the key components of a plan. Check out the marketing environment. I get loads of requests from creative people that send me their work, and one of the things I say, go to the store, visit retail stores, see what's out there, look at the competition, look at what other licensors are doing, read trade and consumer magazines, attend trade shows, gain an understanding of who the players are, which companies use creative works on their products, and the present state of the market. One of the things about art licensing, it's very fashion-driven. So every year, when you go out to the store and you want to buy clothes, you happen to notice that the color of the year changes every year. That's because the Pantone Institute decides which colors are going to be in fashion, and lots of these companies follow them. So you could walk into a store and see everything in a particular color pattern, and you'll go from store to store and you'll notice that, but that's because that's what the industry follows it. So if you go into a place like Pottery Barn, they follow the Pantone Institute and they change their colors of their products according to what Pantone Institute says. So it's really important to understand the market. So if the colors are pinks and purples and whatnot, and you come in, you design product that doesn't really work with that, it may be a problem, or it may be that you're cutting edge and it may work. Creative work owners should research, understand, and be conversant in the general terms of the licensing business, the language of licensing's business customs and practices. And once you understand the external environment, you should organize your internal business plan around being able to execute a plan and the licensing program you wish to pursue. So elements include, what is your creative property? Is it art? Is it photography? What's its style? What's its form? What's its look? Does it fit with current and future market trends? Is it marketable? One of the things you can do is show people what you've done and get a feel for whether it's workable. What are your marketing and financial objectives? What's your timeline to accomplish your objectives? Will you concentrate on one industry? For example, do you have a product that could be Christmas ornaments, and then that's what you're going to work on? Or do you have something that's really generic and it can go on a lot of products? My game for my clients is to license a property across as many products as I possibly can. Dinner is Served is one of the best-selling ceramic dinnerware lines, and it has been for 10 years. And we've built on it with greeting cards and puzzles and all kinds of things. So my game is always expand, and then really get a foothold in the market. But then there are products like this pattern that's been gift bags, and now it's been cards, I think, and now it's paper tableware, and maybe it won't be much more. So you have to decide what your property, what your creative works can be applied to, and that's part of your plan. So will it fit a variety of product areas, or is it limited in scope? And how are you going to organize your business to handle the program? Do you have expertise to handle the creative, the marketing, the sales, the accounting, the legal, the administration functions on your own? Are you going to need outside resources, lawyers, agents, publicity agencies, accountants, etc.? As an agent, I'm not a lawyer, so I do have legal counsel that I call on to help me with things. I have a CPA who does the financial and administrative work as part of my works for my company, and that's a service that we offer our clients. So do you have the adequate resources to support a full service program? So after you looked at the external and internal environment, next you plan your strategy. You identify your creative works, that develop your brand and the work you wish to license. Determine the channel of distribution. Is it mass market, or do you have something that can go into Walmart, into the mass, or Target, or one of those stores? And that's a really competitive market. You would work through a licensee to do that, but you'd have to determine whether the creative work fits the mass market. Or is it something that I call the upstairs market, specialty stores, department stores, or is it an internet retail item? Identify product categories and industries you wish to pursue for the licensing of your property. Assure that you have proper legal protection for your work, copyrights, and trademarks. And many of our lawyer colleagues today have spoken about that. It's really, really important. Research and evaluate manufacturers that are considered as prospective licensees. Some companies will take work from the outside. Some companies, you send your work and they want you to sign a non-disclosure form. That's something you should talk to a lawyer about. I've had experience where one of the big greeting card publishers, who shall not be named, makes you sign that, and then you give them ideas, and then a year later you might see something similar on the market to what you sent in, and there's not anything you can do about it. There are plenty of companies that do licensing and will use outside licensors, and some will pay royalties, and in a tough economy right now, some won't. So that's a decision you have to make. How are you going to expose, communicate, and promote your licensed property to the licensee? So you have to think of how you're going to present it, how you're going to sell it to them. You need a sales presentation kit and give features and benefits of your property and why it works for them. You need to determine what the terms and conditions for licensing sales will be. So advance, royalty, term of contract, all kinds of things. Let's see, territory, specific products, etc. all go into a standard license agreement. Will the terms be the same across the board for all industries and products? Most likely not. What royalty rate, advance royalties, guarantees will you seek? Usually in licensing, different royalty rates go by industry and by product, so you have to be aware of what that is. If they sell into the mass market, into Walmart, the royalty rates are lower because they have huge distribution. If you're going into an upscale department store, the royalty rates can be higher, but the volume is lower. And you have to decide what product rights you're going to grant, and will you grant exclusive or non-exclusive rights. So you implement your marketing sales program, you sell some licenses, you evaluate licensees, you present, sell, negotiate, and close your agreement. Now you've got a license agreement because you've been successful. So one of the things that's really important is you're going to be working on product development with the licensee. And you're going to supply the artwork or the property to them. And one of the things you really need to do is make sure in your license agreement that you have rights to approve what they do and you see it beforehand and make corrections. I was doing puzzle work earlier this week. They sent me the box and for approval. I took a look at it and found some problems on there. Found they forgot to put the copyright of the artist and a few other things. So it's really important not to just let it go. You have a review right in your contract, hopefully, and make sure you review it so that you're happy, because you don't want to go to the store and see your product out there and it doesn't have your name on it. And it's really important to service the licensing and product development. Besides approving it, assure that the product ships to market. It's really important that you have in your contract that they have a marketing date so that you know that they're not. Sometimes people take licenses just to take the artist out of the market and they just hold on to it and they don't ever produce it. So you don't want that because you're not going to make any money. And once it's in the market, review your royalty statements, evaluate your sales results. One of the things I say is that I always have audit rights in all of the license agreements. And if I walk into a store, if I walk into Walmart and I see huge footage of product in Walmart and then I get a royalty report with really small sales, I'm going to say, something's not exactly right here. I would say most companies are fine and I haven't had too many problems, but there have been some that are big black X's in my mind not to deal with. For that very reason. I mean, we've done audits and come up with thousands of dollars that were due us just on oversight. But that's few and far between. But continue ongoing management of the program that you put together. There's an art to merchandise licensing, and the key is to understand the market, the business conditions, the product, and the business environment, and carefully plan and skillfully manage your program. It's a business like any other business. If you were going to open up a retail store or any sort of business, this is the same. The product just happens to be the creative works. Art licensing has the potential to be a long-term business for a professionally minded creative property owner with market saleable work. There are people that make multi thousands of dollars on licensing and make a great living, and then there's some that have licenses and make a few $1,000s a year. So, but it's a business. And once it's established, you can continue to work with the licensee and develop the business by serving their needs and finding out what they need and continuing to supply design or your property to them and updating it and changing it and moving with the market trends. So thank you all for having me today, and I'm happy to answer any questions about licensing, merchandise licensing. Thank you. Maria?
I was curious about an average cycle for when you start working with potential licensee and you get through. Are the agreements fairly standard so that the negotiations don't take long and it's a year in between initial engagement and something happening, or it's a few months, or everyone's so different?
Every industry, because I work across the board in so many industries. So, for example, calendars, we're going to be doing 2017, and we're starting that now because calendars ship into the market in September. So this year's, in September 2016, will come in. So behind it, we're working ahead. But most products have about a 9 to 12 month cycle. The bigger the company, the longer the product development cycle takes. So if you're with a huge company, it might take, a year to 18 months. If you're with a small company who can hit the ground running, they might be out there in 6 months. I had a puzzle company who showed one of my artists' work to some retailers. This was like in March one year, and the retailer said, I'm ready to place an order right now, and I wanted the product in store in August. And that was like the fastest. But this was a smaller company, and she could do it. But it just depends. And the market now is pretty tough because the retail economy is not great. So what's happening is that licensees are showing product to retailers, and retailers are like really holding back on having inventory in the stores, and they kind of wait to the last moment. So the theme now is, hurry up and wait, and then they decide, and then hurry up and get your artwork and get the product development. But typically, I'd say 9 months to a year is the average. And we'll be working on Christmas 2016 is, happens about 18 months before, so. Yep.
The duration of the agreements, are they typically, would they just be for a particular season, or are they based on duration, or are they based on volume? And if at some point the product isn't selling any, enough units, the licensee can say we're done with this at this point?
The contracts, I typically like to do 2 or 3 year contracts. They have marketing dates attached to them. They're for specific products, for specific territories, and that's what
so
we.
If they wanted to, if the licensee says we want to add another line of different products, would you be negotiating a new agreement for that, or would it be?
If it's in the same company, for example, this party company does paper tableware, and sometimes they have new products that they add, and they want to add. So we'd add it by amendment and say, okay, if you want to extend, or you want to do a new line, or you happen to be saying now I'm going to do ceramic tableware, we'd either add it, or if it was so different, then we do a new contract.
I'm curious how aware the artists are about how to pursue these interests. Are you doing a lot of education? Does that become a critical part of what you do, or do you find that they've been exposed to this and they have some idea about how to navigate the path?
I find that no, they really. I think most consumers don't know that licensing, it's like all around you wherever you are. They don't really know how it gets there. They don't really think, oh, here's like a T-shirt with Coca-Cola. That's not what Coca-Cola sells, but okay. I don't think most people know. And artists, they have some idea, but basically, when they work with the agent, when I approach them, and they approach me or I approach them, they're happy to be the creative side of it, and I'm the marketing, sales, administration, legal, accounting, etc. side of it. And so I would say some of them are aware, but generally, I think they're working their creative side, and they're really not complete. Some of them have had some experience, and I've heard so many horror stories that I feel very protective. That's one of the things. I'm their advocate, my client's advocate. I had somebody who told me that she went to some other agent and gave her originals, and the agent spilled coffee all over it and said, just redo it. And another one cut up her work and said, oh yeah, I was trying to crop it and I cut it and I ruined it, this kind of stuff. And then some of them, sign licenses unknowing, as Kim was talking about. Some of these publishing agreements are for life plus and really one-sided. I had one artist that signed a license with a calendar company and got an advance and was so excited and didn't really read or understand what she signed, and if they didn't sell enough to make the advance, that she had to pay back whatever was left. And so she got an invoice, and it was I don't know, she got $2,500 and she had to pay back half of it or something. So it's really important, this is a business, and it's really important to have, advocates for you, and don't be, if you get a license agreement, I always say if you get a license agreement from a company, for my clients, I have a standard license agreement that we use, and that's what we use with all the licensees. And I'd say 95% of the time, That's the agreement that I say we use. Because they're usually one-sided and they're more weighted towards the licensee. So it's really important to engage a lawyer to look at it and take care of you. You'd rather be that than have them like taking out all these fees and all these things, and then you get a check for 15 cents or something after all this. So, but it's a complicated program. I mean, licensing. You prepare a property, you start to make presentations, you're negotiating, and you're working in the future. So I always say I'm aging quickly because now I'm working on calendars for 2017. So, it's out there. And one of the things you'd have to do is build a program, and you have to start building a foundation. So you get licensees and you try to build on it so that you're constantly getting royalty income coming in.
When you make the presentations, the artist goes and presents these to potential licensees. Is there a lot of back and forth as far as, I like where you're going with this, but then they want to direct the work, or do you find it's where they are in their career?
It's me that's making the presentations.
Nice. Okay.
So they typically don't. If we're with a licensee and we're doing new product development, like we're constantly doing new product development on Dinner is Served, yes, she'll go. But yeah, in this really tough retail environment, I like this, but can he be looking to the left? Can his hand be this way? Can you change this and this and this? So there's a lot of that. I was just in a big project with one of the major retailers, and the licensee, we were working through the licensee, they asked for all these changes, but they're not art people. They're retailers. And after 10 changes that they had the artist jump through hoops, they go, nah, I don't like it anymore. So you've got that. But yes, they can say I like that, and sometimes they commission things. But right now it's pretty tough out there, and artists have to do a lot of work. And some of the licensees are great. They don't want to put the artist to a lot of work unless they know they're going to get a commitment from the retailer.
Dinner is Served artist?
It was a really weird story. I was reading a local newspaper in Amherst, and I saw this illustration on an ad. And I went, oh, I really like that style, because I'm always looking, for new artists, fresh looks. So I called, and I found out I was looking for the artist, and I found out it was an ad agency. So I went to this ad agency, and the owner of the agency, was supposed to meet with me, and he stood me up. And I left. I wasn't going to sit there waiting, an hour for him to come back. And about 2 hours later, Tracy calls me and says, somebody was sitting in the office and heard what you did and thought that was perfect for me. And history was made after that. And we got together, and the first line that she did a really fun line of cats called A Romper's World, and it was a big hit, and we sold it in greeting cards and giftware and all kinds of things, and we're going on about 28 years together. And she's a grad of UNH. She's very talented. Any other questions? Well, thank you all very much.